This is the Mind Body Detox Podcast, where we discuss all things integrative health and wellness, interviewing folks from all over the world, sharing insights and wisdom for how to live a healthier life in mind, body, and spirit. Welcome back, everyone, to the Mind Body Detox Podcast. I'm your host, Mind Body Medium, Kara Lovehart, and we're continuing our series today talking about the energy system and how we can work with understanding it so that we can master our energy. We're going to talk about the mind-body connection today, and we're diving into the solar plexus, or where we have our empowerment, where we hold our empowerment in our system. Last episode, we talked about the heart space, compassion, self-care, being in our essence, truly in our essence, letting go of who we think we are, our identity, right? So we can just be in our heart space. Now, if we expand from that, I always start there because that's where we want to start, who we are, right? If we have that sense of who we are, that sense of somatic feeling in our heart of who we are, then what do? We're in this physical world, right? We have come here to do something, right? The heart space is an internal, compassionate, giving nature, but also receiving. It's this emanating force of love, being, right? What do we do with that now? Because we can't just be our entire lives. We have things to do here, quite frankly, right? The next expression, if we expand from our heart space, is to encapsulate our essence into some sort of container. Now, what does that look like? Probably a goal of some sort, probably a mental idea of what we want to accomplish. It could be a flower arrangement. It could be a new business. It could be having a baby. It could be moving, decorating. It could be just exercising and hitting a goal with your weight. But anytime we set forth on some sort of goal, there's mental processes that start to come online, right? So this is where we have this connection from our heart to our brain, and an idea is formed. And usually the gut brain, the solar plexus, this is our midsection here above the belly button where our digestive system sits, liver, gallbladder, pancreas, large intestine, right? Stomach. This is the area that we feel a gut sensation. We have the most nerve endings here. There's a lot of organs in there to nourish. So this is where we also get our gut punches. Our sense of knowing that butterflies in your stomach can be a nervousness from maybe a mental thought of first day of the new job. I'm going on a new date. I have to have a talk with my boss or my, spouse. Those butterflies can be that nervousness, that anxiousness that we can feel in the stomach and can disrupt our digestion and our digestive processes, right? So where do we take our essence and who we are and birth it or bring it forth? The next stage of bringing it forth into manifestation is by finding a way to balance and master our solar plexus energy. If we want to talk about it as a quote unquote energy, right? It's the expression of empowerment. And empowerment is very similar to this sense of confidence sustained. When we experience moments of confidence in our culture, it's usually confidence based on accomplishment. But in the divine nature of who we are, it's confidence based on being us and having the idea that's been divinely downloaded into us, or we've received this sense of who we are, why we're here, and maybe even why we're here today, just to go eat a meal. Like my purpose right now is to eat a meal. My purpose right now is to take a shower. My purpose right now is to throw a wedding party. Whatever that thing is that we feel, it's connected to this divine essence of self beyond our programs. We talked about that last time. And that's really a lot of, again, the Mind Body Detox program is what do we need to detox or deprogram? That's something that we've been taught societally from our parents, our upbringing, that does block us in our core beliefs of who we think we are. But the divine essence of who we are, we talked about that heart space, when we expand it and we're now in this essence of being, trying to express our power, our confidence does come from just knowing who we are, not it having to be potentially torn down by what we did yesterday or what we're going to do tomorrow. And I want to explain that because we think our confidence is based on the things we've achieved. And that's where the distortions of the solar plexus energy starts to come in. And we have really created this sort of prison in a way that we have to achieve this goal. And there's a finish line mentality there. When the divine confidence that we carry within ourselves is really from the moment, it exists in this moment. And it looks like having the centeredness in your being, in your heart space, and getting a hunch or a gut sense or a feeling of, I want to do something. I want to get up, or I want to write an email to someone, whatever it is. And the decision to do it comes from a place of love. That heart space, as it starts, right? It doesn't come from a place of, oh my gosh, I think that person's upset with me and mad at me. I need to go maybe write them an email to make sure everything's okay. That is a place where we're not feeling confident. Love exudes an expression of confidence. And in our world, we gain confidence from our story, our culture, through a series of challenging events, right? And that is something that from when we were a child, the first time we begin to crawl and to walk, we push ourselves, right? Back during that time, before we had a story, whether we're good enough or we're not good enough, when we expressed our divine power of, I'm going to do something that I want to do, we had this instinct, this draw, this push. I'm going to try to crawl. I'm going to now move up and I'm going to stand and I'm going to try to hold myself up. Those were challenging, but we got really centered. We were very present, right? We're standing up and we're knowing it's a little challenging, but then we did it and we got really excited. And if we were lucky enough, we had parents that cheered us on and that supported that. But there is this sense of accomplishment, whether or not there was someone there, this instinct that we have as a being to start to walk, to up-level ourselves to the next phase of our growth. You know, even when we would go to our kindergarten, we come home, we bring a picture home. Look what I drew. A lot of times we're proud of it, even before someone gives us that, you did a good job, Johnny, or whatever it is. There's this sense of pride, of confidence, and just, I made that. You just, if you have little ones or grandchildren, whenever they make something for you, it does reflect, it helps to reflect back at them the joy that they're expressing to you, to affirm for them that it's okay to be confident about what you just created, because they had an instinct, a drive, a motivation, a life force that came through their heart to make them do and act, the action of doing, of creating whatever it was. And innately, there's a confidence there. It's when we get older and we start getting that first look from our parents or our siblings or whatever the cue was, words, body language, whatever it is that starts to show us this distortion of, no, that's not enough. That's not good enough. That's where those experiences that we all have, those start to distort our confidence. Now, if we're very lucky, we do have friends and family and supportive people that cherish us and give us a very nourishing and supportive environment that can give us the resources and the nutrients, so to speak, to continue to keep that divine confidence that we hold within ourselves. No shame or guilt or I didn't do enough with my picture of my drawing. Even if we as an adult can say, well, it doesn't really look like a boat. We as an adult are starting to judge that. And that's where we take our programming of judgment of what's good enough or not and start to project it onto our little ones. And then that sense of I'm not good enough, or that confidence can start to dwindle, that innate confidence. So we as an adult have this challenge in our lives to try to find the balance of detoxing or getting rid of confidence breaking or diminishing ideas, thoughts, beliefs, and patterns that have been instilled upon us by our society, our family, or our experiences. And I think that we have so much of that because we're in a culture that does a lot of comparison, and we are so ingrained that we have a goal or a finish line or a standard. There's a bar to meet. Not only it's told to us unconsciously through advertising and media what we should look like, what is a quote unquote happy person. And I think that is where we have so much distortions in our power. And we are trying to attain power in all the wrong ways. And I'm not one to, I don't really like saying something's right or wrong, because there's no right or wrong. Whenever I coach people, there's never a right or wrong. It's more, if you want to go towards the moon, but you're headed towards the sun in that direction, that's quote unquote the wrong direction. You won't get there going that way, right? But I know that life has its funny way of rerouting us when we're kind of on a path that does not in alignment with where we really want to go. We might just not see it right away until we figured out, oh, wait, that's not where I want to go, right? And I think with our culture, with this needing to be enough or something, like there's some concept that we're not enough, it really creates distortions, and it starts in our thinking. And it's not surprising that our thinking is really tied into our solar plexus and the health of this part of our energy field. When I started cataloging the energy fields that I would see in the auras and how they were, what color they were, and how big they were, how small they were, well, first thing I noticed was the people in my life at the time that were authoritative figures in my life, teachers and people that we would say as adults were kind of not using their power or their sense of authority or parentalship, whatever they were in a leadership position. There was a power differential between me and them. These people had this darker kind of urine color yellow in their aura. It wasn't bright and vibrant. And I learned later on, a lot of them had liver issues. Not surprisingly, now I understand how the liver and gallbladder are connected to the organs connected to this particular energy expression. But these people showed a lot of signs and symptoms when I got to know them more of they felt disempowered in their life. They had this need to control and to control others because they felt out of control themselves. And whenever anything felt out of control, they would try anything within their power to control things, situations, or people around them to feel a sense of being in control. And honestly, that most of the time was an unconscious pattern. It was a self-soothing, anxiety-reducing behavior that became a habit and a pattern and a lifestyle, and then a characteristic of the person. And this is where our culture has a huge uprising right now of where is misuse of power? Where do we have corruption? Where is this not right? We have this rising up of angsty, frustration, anger, of the inequitable, in things that are not equal, inequality, right? We're having that come up. And I find that very interesting because in general, we have an overexpression of the solar plexus energy. It's active. It's so active. And this is so tied in my opinion, with burnout. So imagine you're me, you're learning, no one gives you a book on this stuff. You're learning as a psychic medium what the energy field looks like. And when you see a lot of yellow billowing out from around the energy of around the body of people around their solar plexus, and it's like massively big. It seems like it's intruding upon other people's space, almost like this projection of, you can imagine like a flashlight, but it's larger. It's kind of like a cloud. And when people are interacting with other people, that cloud is almost reaching out and trying to overtake someone else. And it specifically starts to get bigger when that person feels a sense of not feeling enough, or they feel threatened, or they feel someone's threatening who they are. This is where arguments happen. When people argue, there's usually one person, or sometimes two, where both of their energies are going at each other, and they're trying to establish the dominance of who's right or who's wrong. Solar plexus energy can be, when it's overactive, especially when it's battling back and forth with another person or another group of people, this expression is totally who's right. It's trying to be right. It's kind of like trying to be the alpha. It's kind of a primal thing as well. We try to maintain this dominance, a sense of superiority. And this is one of my favorite quotes is, insecurity is loud, confidence is quiet. So when someone truly is confident in their power, They're not easily influenced or on the defensive when something comes into their being or their life that would necessarily threaten them. They feel confident in who they are. They're maybe open to changes in perspectives. They're solid in their beliefs about the world, and they're open and considerate and curious of things that might come along. They're there to problem solve with ease, with a sense of centeredness, not defensiveness, not anxiety of having to overthink to try to solve a problem because there's maybe worried that they might not get it right. All of the things that show up in the solar plexus imbalance usually relates around someone's ego and their identity, trying to maintain its in being intact. And I think that's why when we go through an identity crisis, like we go through becoming an empty nester, we lose a loved one, we lose a job, we move, all these things that we have a pattern in our lives that says, this is where I live, this is where I work, this is what I do, this is who I'm married to, this is how much money I make. All those things are our identities. And when one of those things or multiple of those things at once changes, that's why we don't like change as humans, right? The change can be very scary because then we have like this lack or grip of who we think we are then. But the truth of who we are is really beyond those identity points. And it's not until we really surrender and let go. Surrender and let go are the key words for finding balance here in this energy center. Until we surrender and let go, then we can find the sense back of our divine confidence, that part of ourself that came up to our parents or our teacher without shame and said, look at this cool thing I created, this shining light. The confident, open, divine solar plexus essence or expression of a person, when I see that, when they're in their power, they're exuberant. Their life force is resilient. They are not easily brought down by negativity. Even negative thoughts or self-sabotaging thoughts that might come up, or even other people's criticism, doesn't really affect them. It's like it's Teflon. One of my close friends, she has this exuberant, bright aura. And because of it, she's very optimistic. She's also grounded and realistic. So she's not idealistically like spaced out and not, living in la la land. But she has, which is a balanced expression of this, she has this optimistic expression of her energy that's so bright. And because of that positivity and that optimism, it's this divine essence or expression of her solar plexus allows her heart to come through in the actions, in the doing of her nature. And we talked about at the beginning here that the heart center is the being. It's the passive nature and expression of our energy field when it's in its mastery. And then the solar plexus is the expression of the doing in the mastery of our energy. And she is so in a space of heart space and love that when she expresses her doing, it feels very empowered. And guess what? Because of who she is, that she doesn't let negativity, her thoughts, overthinking, trying to problem solve, and lack of confidence or negative thoughts in herself, she doesn't let that stuff bring her down. She holds a resilience. She has a confidence about her that attracts people to her. And this is where, when you have mastery in your energy field and understand how it works, you will see this pattern in relationships, in things that you could say you attract, but you're more on the radar to pick up. I don't think that's in alignment for me, or that is. And certain people are attracted to you because you have something that they don't have. So guess what this person does for a living? They're very empowered and they're in a heart-centered nature. They're an empowerment coach, but they are very much a person who, because they shine this innately in who they are, people who don't have that sense of confidence and who are looking for that, they see her as, this is something I need. I need to be around her. I need to absorb that. I need to emulate that within myself. So you'll notice when we're going through this series, if you can identify things within yourself, when you have an absence or a lack or an imbalance, you will unconsciously or consciously attract people into your life, or find certain people that you are just end up being around that have qualities that you don't have. or they have qualities that you're trying to get away from and you're trying to overcome in yourself. A lot of times that happens too. You'll see a reflection of yourself and who you attract in your life. And as you overcome and expand and find balance within yourself, these people will either change with you or they'll fall away. So I love this topic of empowerment in general, because this is my whole life. Like my whole life is finding empowerment and what it really means. And I'm gonna talk about a thing that I'm gonna do a little bit of a trigger warning here, a trauma informed practice. I'm just letting you guys know that I'm going to discuss just a brief thing about cults. Okay, I know that could be a trigger for people, so just know that, forewarning, that I'm going to go into that for a little bit here. So one of the things that I am very passionate about is with misuse of power. People that I've seen in my life and have experienced that have, whatever it comes from, why they are feeling they have to control others, right? Misuse their power. I've experienced that in my life in a lot of ways. And I've also experienced it with people who are in the psychic profession and the energy healing profession, and people who have just such a, and this comes from compassion, this is not judgment, but from such a lack of their divine essence of their confidence that they overcompensate for this lack of security and confidence in their identity. And because of that, that's where control and misuse of power and manipulation comes in. And when we don't feel empowered, we feel disempowered. This is when I meet people who've felt disempowered, they had this in their life, whether they're victims of abuse or trauma, whatever. This can really mess up your whole solar plexus. This is where we'll go in the episode here later, what happens in the physical body, the mind-body connection, how it manifests in the body. But this has shown up in people who have been manipulated, who have been duped, frauds, scammers, cults, that kind of thing. And I have this fascination with understanding and wanting to understand people who end up in these positions of misusing their power, because a lot of times it can be brain related, trauma related. They might have some sort of brain issue. There are narcissists. There's things like that I see, but I find it more interesting the people who end up following them. And it's kind of my passion in this lifetime, especially with the rise and the resurgence of, you could call it the age of Aquarius, but the rise and resurgence of psychic individuals, healers, mediums. People are out there in the social media lands projecting their gifts. We need them. But along with that, I've seen a lot of just stuff that's not really in integrity, that's coming from a place of not divine confidence, but feeling that they're needing to create this dynamic with others for a power control issue, where you might have manipulation happening. And because I do this for a living as a medium, obviously I'm passionate about it because I know how valuable my work is for people and other colleagues that are really in alignment with my values and in integrity. We do a really amazing work and I'm really proud of it. But I've also seen a lot of things that really make me feel that sense of uneasiness. And guess where I feel it? In my stomach, in my solar plexus. Where else would you feel it when there's a sense of not feeling empowered? If someone's taking away your power, if you see something on the news that doesn't feel right, oh my gosh, either the frustration or the anger can come up, or the feeling disempowerment. We mostly will feel it as a sensation in our chest and in our stomach, but the power module or the solar plexus, we might feel this imbalance or this twitching or this bubbly butterfly sensation in our stomach. And whenever I talk about the cults and the misuse of power, I feel it in my stomach. And it's something that I would love. My goal in my career is to help empower enough people to ask questions, to identify their triggers, and to identify where their blind spots are, so that for the most part, they cannot have anyone else manipulate them or control them or get duped when it comes to giving away your power to someone else. And that's what people tend to do to psychics. They want to come to us and say, can you tell me what's right, what's wrong, what's going to happen in my future? Because there's a sense of eagerness and insecurity and not a sense of trust in the universe and trust in yourself, because you are the universe. God, higher power, is you living through you. It is all around you. And no matter what your religious belief system is, there is a sense of something that is there. There's an operating force that is here to support our growth. And if we don't trust that, we do come to people like myself. Or if we have grief, we need to connect with a medium. That there's a lot of good purposes for it. But my beef is with people who continue to be disempowered through their mediums, through their coaches, versus I want to help you become in tune with yourself. This is why energy mastery and understanding the energy system, explaining it. And I want clients who I work with to feel it within themselves, to have their own personal experience with it, so they can learn to turn up the volume to their own inner wisdom, this intuition that lies within our heart, within our solar plexus. Within our mind, we have these different senses, and we talk about the clairs and our psychic senses that can develop with expanding our consciousness. Say it all the time, that intuition and psychic abilities is just a consequence of expanding our consciousness. So if we can become aware of our energy and learn how we can master it, learn when it's imbalanced or when it's out of balance, or when someone's coming into our life that is creating havoc with our bodies, our energy fields, how do we find balance again and find our center? So let's go into the physical body now. Let's talk about the physical aspect of solar plexus. So recap one quick second. Overactive solar plexus is this doing, this frustration, this trying to control. Underactive is not having energy to perform, to create action steps, and maybe sluggish behavior, feeling powerless. We can feel powerless as well when we're overactive and we're trying to achieve something and hitting our head against a brick wall and feeling like we can't make something happen. So the resolution to this is surrender, letting go. And learning to let go is a process. It's something that we dive deeper into the tools to work with balancing our energy system in our program, in our online subscription, in Mind Body Detox Working with Me one-on-one. There's lots of ways to get involved with this, no matter where you're at. I want to offer, of course, free resources for our podcast here, our online community space, and then working one-on-one. So whatever resources you have, if you feel called, you can always reach out. I'll put in the show notes. You can do a free consultation with us. But in general, surrender and letting go are the ways that we find this sense of balance in our solar plexus. It's a lot to let go and surrender when you're in the head and in the mind. And sometimes we have to work through those things in order to do it. For those of you out there who say, I don't know how to let go, how do I surrender? It's something that's a process. So let's move into the physical aspect of this. So we talk about the stomach, liver, gallbladder, pancreas, large intestine, and somewhat of their small intestine, our kidneys and our adrenal glands and our mid-back. So just if you could take your hand, put it on your stomach above your belly button, and then wrap your hands the whole way around to your back. This whole area, the nerve bundles here, there's a lot of nerve bundles here because it does support and nourish all these internal organs that are vital to our health and our wellness and our operation. Because there's so much nervous system activity, there's a lot more energy flow there. So this is the one place that if someone says, I'm not intuitive at all, I can't feel anything, I usually say there's probably some point in your life where you had a gut feeling about something and it came true. And you said, oh my gosh, you kicked yourself. Why didn't I trust it? Or I knew, or something I sensed in my gut. And we even use that term, my gut said, or I had a hunch, right? I believe that our nervous system is the doorway to our intuition. And when we heighten our self-awareness and deepen into our awareness of when our nervous system is starting to react to our environment, little cues, subtle shifts and changes, that we can turn on that intuition. And because we have more nerve endings in our solar plexus area, I believe that this is one of the stronger points for people, even who say, I'm not intuitive. I say, you feel it there. You're going to feel a gut sense somehow. And so let's look at the gut-brain connection, right? We talked about our heart in the last episode. That develops first in utero. Then we have the brain stem, the lower part of the brain that keeps our heart rate and our autonomic rhythms of our blood flow and blood pressure going. The gut is between, the heart is between the gut and the brain. So we have this center here that starts the first line of communication to our essence, our heart. And then our brain is getting relayed information from our heart quicker, because our heart communicates quicker to the brain. But the brain and the gut are connected. There's this gut-brain axis. The gut is termed the second brain because it has 100 million nerve cells. And it does communicate bidirectionally, so both ways with the brain. So when you get information from your solar plexus, it's communicating to the brain what's going on in the environment. And also just physiologically, if you're eating something, digesting something, it's going to be communicating to the brain what's going on, the brain communicating back to it. We need digestive enzymes. We need saliva. We need, what are we doing with the balance of our stomach acid? These are the things that the body regulates autonomically. So the communication between our gut and our brain influences our emotions, our stress response, and these gut feelings, which really are the gut feelings are the underlying physiological basis of intuition. If we have imbalances, like we talked about low self-esteem, low self-worth, indecisiveness, or aggressiveness and need for control, but the impact when that manifests on these organs is potentially issues with the stomach, pancreas, liver, and gallbladder. And we have a big culture that has liver issues, liver problems. We have a lot of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. That means fatty liver with not being an alcoholic in our culture. And it's a lot of times because of sugar. Could say there's other toxins in our environment that our liver may not be able to excrete properly. So it's taxing our liver's ability to detox. And just because of those environmental toxins, not necessarily coming from our personality and our characteristics, when we are physiologically blocked from what we're eating or what toxins are in there, that does start to affect and shift the energy because the organ system is not functioning properly. So people ask me, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? And I'm like, you know what? I don't always know. I don't actually know. We're making a guess here. Maybe it's all connected. Maybe this whole thinking, which came first, the chicken or the egg, is a thinking that's linear, before, middle, after. We have this sense of time as humans. Maybe it's not like that. But for the most part, my answer to that would be, if you are having issues with your liver and you start to have uncharacteristic irritability, frustration, or even anger, it might be an issue with the liver and how that energy system is flowing, because the blocked, clogged liver or overactive excess energy is going to potentially affect your expression or emotional regulation, specifically of anger. And that's from a Chinese medicine perspective. We also might have issues with our metabolic function. Digestion can cause issues with fatigue and feeling really tired. When we're in this go, go, go mode, most of our nervous system is getting ready to run, to fight, to flee. We don't really have the system turned down enough to properly create digestive enzymes, peristalsis, which is the rippling effect of our large intestine to move stool through. That's where we have issues with constipation, or it's too overactive and we get IBS, we get diarrhea. We get these really strong connections between the mind and the body, especially the stomach and the digestion. And that's something that's really important to note. And chronic stress and overthinking, anxiety, and I'd say anxiety related to perfectionism. We'll talk about anxiety and issues around relationships, physical resources. Those are other energy centers. But the anxiety specifically around overthinking and chronic stress and perfectionism, trying to be perfect on trying to control, because perfectionism is kind of a sense of trying to control everything, right? And we have a beautiful episode on perfectionism that we did, and I'll reference that in the show notes as well. But if we think about, I'll briefly talk about perfectionism. It's really the relentless pursuit of achievement. And what do we have a lot of in our culture? The exhaustion of burnout. And when we wrapped our hands around our stomach and our solar plexus here, we were referencing the adrenal glands. They sit on top of the kidneys. That is part of this issue with exhaustion. We're trying to push ourselves. And every time we do, we pump a little bit of cortisol. Let's push ourselves a little bit more. Let's drink a little bit of caffeine to keep us going through the day. We can get the next thing done. And that is where I think burnout is related to this particular energy center. And I think I use the term people blowing out their solar plexus. They're trying so hard to push and to achieve and to go that the energy center gets depleted. It's just, there's not enough power there because we haven't created restful being inward space, letting go, surrender space within our consciousness to allow it to replenish itself. so it's vibrant and radiant and has enough energy to make decisions, execute them, and feel confidence, and that confidence building in what we executed, especially when it's aligned with our purpose and our meaning and our sense of who we are. So in energy balancing, I think we want to find ways that we can work with creating a strong, healthy solar plexus. So I'm going to just build on what we did last time. And these are simple tools in our program, in our online, community. We want to really go into deeper things because it's really fun. We have so many tools to play around with, to learn self-care, to learn balancing methods for our energy field. And the first one I would say would be recentering on your heart, because that heart space is always the core. It's the foundation where I feel like we should always start. Finding that breath, breathing into our heart space and out, and maybe thinking of something we're grateful for, something we're proud of. Specifically, if we're trying to regain the energy of confidence, of sense of control, and really that sense of control that's really the only one that's real, is refinding control of our own energy. And even when we feel that we're not in control of our energy, we've been heightened, our emotional dysregulation's coming up, maybe we're angry, letting ourselves let go of the fact that in that moment, we maybe can't control it. Maybe we're doing the breath, we're doing the slowing down, we're trying to clear our mind, whatever tool that we're using to try to regulate ourselves. Sometimes, especially when we've been really dysregulated a lot in this area, we're trying so hard to control ourselves. And it could be that you have, I have a history of environmental toxins, and I have a genetic mutation that affects my liver's ability to detox, right? So I, of all people, have experienced having things in my environment and also in my diet that affect my mood and affect my ability to regulate my nervous system and stay balanced and centered. And that's really challenging, because if you don't feel in control of your nervous system because of, it could be hormone imbalances. Come on, ladies, we know that. Like, we get moody that time of month and it's like, oh my gosh, I feel like so ashamed that I couldn't quote unquote control myself. This is where we want to go back to the heart space again and be compassionate and gentle with ourselves. And if we are in a situation where we're doing as much as we can to regulate and calm ourselves down, be still. If we can't, allowing it to be in that moment and just surrendering, not trying to be perfect. And I messed up and I can't regulate, I'm not good enough, right? Because that perpetuates this lack of confidence. It goes back to the heart space always, because that's where we find the compassion and the centeredness to find the life force power to then, when we feel that centeredness, to move into this space of, what do I do next? Because remember, the solar plex is the doing. So by recentering, maybe putting our hand on our heart, breathing in, imagining the breath is going into the heart, breathing out, imagining it's expanding, thinking about someone you love or a thought that's gracious or gratitude for life, that's expanding that heart energy. Then maybe place your other hand on your solar plexus, on your stomach, and just start to think about the essence of who you are, what you feel in your heart, this love, because that's it. That feeling is the source of where your confidence has come from. And let's rewind back to when you were a child, that confidence, unashamed. Let me show you this picture I made. Isn't that great? That is this divine power, that divine confidence. And it comes from the heart, the innocent heart, the open, innocent heart. We can't truly have power and let go of control and surrender our fears and our anxieties because we don't feel enough, right? If we don't have this centeredness of feeling enough. And when we feel that sense of enough coming from the heart space, then it ripples out into our next incarnation or our next expression or manifestation of that love. And that's doing. So coming from the heart, placing the hand on the solar plexus, what is the next action step I should do? That's where the mental process comes in. So bringing yourself into heart center, placing your hand on your stomach, And through that centeredness, say, what is my centered action step that I should take? That's the mind starting to get involved. And the mind, if you are centered in your heart, the heart and the brain will connect in coherence, and the mind will give you answers, for the most part, if you've practiced this, that are not degrading, diminishing, bullying, all the self-sabotage and the perfectionism-based mental thinking that is toxic to the solar plexus's health. And this need to be enough, and I let everyone down, or I let myself down, right? This self-judgment. Because when you come from a place of confidence in yourself and love in your heart, there is not necessarily judgment of others, because you're empowering yourself, or you're powering your energy and your body from a place of love and centeredness. And judgment doesn't exude out of you in those moments. And that's where, like my friend I expressed, she exudes such confidence and optimism. People don't feel judgment coming from her, so they flock to her. They need someone. We need people in this world to hold a space of non-judgment, because there's so much of it out there. It's a beautiful refuge to be in someone's presence who you truly feel, not only through their energy, but their actions, that they don't judge. And judgment is just a defense mechanism. And not that I'm perfect. I still have judgments and resentments and things that I'm healing through my heart. And I love each layer as I get through new things to open my heart more and allow my power to come on more. And this divine sense of confidence of who I am, and who I am to be here to help everybody that I can help, and to just impact anybody else that I can impact, and have a good time doing it, right? Have a good time being in this life and living. And the true divine essence, if we step into this power, not about control, right? Our confidence and expressing the divine doing, when we're in that space, that's when the next phase of this healthy, vibrant solar plexus energy, what it looks like, is fun, play, lighting up a room when you walk in. You're the sunshine when you walk into that space. And that buoyancy that you carry, the resilience, the radiance, is really what is expressed. And just carrying yourself from that perspective, that'll change the way you interact with others, the way you show up in your relationships, the way you might show up at a job interview, whether or not you get that job or not, or get the raise. And that relates to our finances, right? That relates to how we interact with strangers, how they may react to us in a situation that might be reactive to them. Right? We were in the grocery store, we almost ran into their cart, right? They might be really agitated, but if we're in this vibrant, exuberant, centered space, and they can feel that love and maybe a smile or a look or eye contact with them, they can shift as well. And that's how this thing that seems nebulous, the energy mastery and understanding the energy system and how it shows up in our consciousness and shows up in our body, that mind-body connection, this stuff is all encompassing, and it does impact the way you manifest your life. And I am looking forward to continuing this conversation as we go into the next episode and talking about how when we get centered in our hearts and we start to come from a confidence of divine doing, what we're here to do, to express in an exuberant, fun, playful way, the next stage of that is now expressing it through our voice, expressing it through our action, how we carry ourselves, how we show up, being in integrity, feeling that we don't waver from our sense of confidence, not having one person or something out there shift and change how we express ourselves. That's the throat chakra. So we'll talk about that next week. So other than that, if you have any questions, comments, if you love this podcast, please leave us a review and rate us. We would love to hear your feedback. And anyway, I really appreciate you all, and be well until next time, my friends. Thank you for listening to the Mind Body Detox Podcast. If you love this podcast, share it with others and leave us a review. Your reviews help us more than you know and supports us continuing to make episodes and being heard from all over the world. You can also follow the link in our show notes to submit a topic that you would like to hear on the show.